This is going to be a look at Kyle Hamilton's play, specifically focusing on Week 9, the Monday Night Football win over the Saints down in New Orleans. But really kind of a little bit also of a commentary of the progression of his season. He seems to have settled into the role, or the Ravens have seemed to settle into the role, for him that they feel most comfortable with. He looks very smooth and confident in his reads. He reacts with a burst now, and I don't think that was necessarily seen earlier in the season. Maybe he was used, maybe when Marcus Williams was here, he was used in too many different places. I don't know. I'm speculating, but now it seems like they have settled on him as a nickel defender, down what I would call an overhang defender, and I'll explain that in a minute. His tackling has been improved better. He's a demon on special teams. I forget who it was that mentioned it on Twitter. He's really excellent on special teams. He's so good on kickoff that you don't want to take him off because he's so excellent at it. He had 6 tackles against New Orleans. I think one of them was on special teams, but I could be wrong. Should have had his first interception, but they had the ridiculous DPI called on Clark. And look, to talk about his whole season as a progression, there was a 3-game stretch there. I'm talking week 3 through 5. New England, the Bills, and Cincinnati, he's playing like 17 snaps a game, 15 snaps a game. And then suddenly, after Marcus Williams goes out, he now gets a little bit more consistent playing time. 29, 21, 36, 38 the last 2 games. We're going to show a little bit of film from before the Saints game, show a little bit of film from the Browns and the Bucks. I think he's playing quite well in the last 3 weeks. Let's do it this way, okay? The last 3 weeks against the Browns, Bucks, and the Saints, 13 tackles overall, and 11 of them have been solos. 1 tackle for loss, 1 sack, 2 quarterback hits, a pass defensed, and additionally, like I mentioned before, the possibility of the interception, for we not to get a pass interference call on Clark. So let's get to some of the film, and you guys let me know if you're seeing the same improvement as I am. Quick, abrupt reads, decisive. And I like how we're lining him up often to the tight end, and we may play man with him on the tight end, but sometimes we'll drop back and we'll play a zone. This one's overthrown because there's such tight coverage. I think this is kind of one that Brady just really threw away, to be honest with you, because Hamilton's in such good coverage on the tight end. And I think he had another really nice play that I can't show from this game because I think it was shown on NFL's YouTube page. On one of Houston's sacks in that Bucks game, he's going to be the guy that ends up going upfield a little bit, and then Houston fits underneath for the sack. And the one thing I'll say about Hamilton is he plays through contact well. He's not someone that shies away from contact. I'm going to rewind this in a minute and show you what I'm talking about specifically here. Watch Fournette and the collision he has with Hamilton trying to pass pro. This is not a slight collision. I mean, he's really trying to blast Kyle Hamilton. Hamilton dodges it, plays through the contact of Fournette and an offensive lineman and gets involved. Houston had the sack, but Hamilton was there as well. Aggressive, plays through contact. Here he is playing, I believe, cover 3. And the one thing I like about him is he has great eyes. He moves his head. He sees routes developing. He sees multiple routes developing at the same time. If you accept that this is cover 3, the breakdown here is not Kyle Hamilton. Now, the ball is in the middle of the field, so it's possible, because of the trips, that we are loading or slinging the coverage with Patrick Queen. So I'm not going to say that this is his fault, but regardless of whose fault it is or what our coverage call is doing, we have clearly slung or moved the hash droppers, Queen over here, and then this hash dropper over here, and then now Pepe is a little bit wider towards the sideline, and it leaves 2 routes here, one underneath. Queen's just focused on the over developing route by the tight end 88. But my point in showing you that play with Hamilton is A, he doesn't give up on plays. He gets involved. Once he decides to go get the football, he's got to burst. Here he is, him and Stone lined up down near the right side of the offensive line. This is the one where he basically swims an offensive guard, which is an unbelievable move from a safety, or at this point, I guess some people would call him a nickel safety. I don't think that's what he's limited to. I believe that at this time, He's being used as the nickel as opposed to Stone because he's better at it than Stone is. Actually, and I think there's another reason too. Here's Hamilton, by the way, on this play. I think there's another reason why Hamilton is being used as a nickel more so than Stone. Because when Marcus Williams comes back, that's where Hamilton will play. I think that's the genius part of how he's being used for real. Is that they're giving him consistent reads. And when I say consistent, I mean consistent across what he's going to be asked to do when one of our best defensive players returns. So I think it's that he's better than Stone at playing down. And also, that's the position or the spot he's going to play when Marcus Williams returns. This is the first series of the game. And just watch his, I just like his awareness. So this is Hamilton here. First of all, he is communicating pre-snap. It looks like he's echoing a call. He actually knows the call first, and then I think he gets it from Chuck and echoes it back to Marlon Humphrey. I just like what he does when he's in zone. He's looking for work. Okay, guys are passing me. I'm going to pass them off leverage-wise, and then now look for the underneath, which is coming to me. Now, there will be one here in a moment that I think he's a little too deep on, to be honest with you, in the Saints game, but he's got awareness of the routes that are developing outside of him and in front of him. I never said to kids or players, you have to have awareness of the routes behind you. That is not a way to phrase it in a man. That sets up people for failure. What I mean by that is it sets up people to say, well, the route was behind me. I can't cover that. They're not going to say that to you as a coach, but they're going to say that to their friends later on. Never refer to it as routes that are behind you. Always refer to it as routes that are to your outside that you're responsible for. But in any case, we're playing man. They got this DPI called on Chuck, whatever. I like how physical Hamilton is. I like how he gets his hands on the tight ends. Actually, we had him covering slot receivers in this game as well. That's number 10. I think that's Traquan Smith. I could be wrong. I might be wrong with that. That might have been, yeah, that's Smith, who's a pretty talented player, to be honest with you. I like him. In the lead up to that Saints game, I thought he could give us issues. All right, here's Hamilton again in the box. Some would say it. Because when I say in the box, we would say in the box is if you're lined up stacked on or inside of a 9 technique or a 5 technique. So like right here, if Hamilton was to stay here, he's not in the box. He's an overhang. He's a rolled up safety, strong safety nickel. But as soon as he gets either stacked on a 5 technique or a 9 technique or lined up to their inside in that direction, so closer to the football, then he's in the box. So we're creating a 5-3 here. I think this is one where he's a little deep, but I love what he does here. You'll see his helmet flash. He's looking for work. He's looking for routes developing outside of him. Now, they end up completing a short pass for a 7-yard gain. So I understand that, we would like him to be involved, a little bit more involved in that. He's letting balls be thrown in front of him and then bursting and recovering to them, and he's making the tackle. It's a 7-yard gain, though, so we'd like to limit that to a 4 or 5-yard gain, obviously, especially when it's to a running back. All right, Hamilton is to the stack bunch, and this is not where he was in college. In college, he was here. This is where he was. Whenever there was bunch or trips, and there was that player to be stressed, meaning, now there's no running back here, okay? Let's just say for a moment that there was actually a running back. Usually the running back's going to cross face, quarterback's going to read someone. Either the D end, either the inside linebacker. In some cases, they'll read this guy. If this guy stems down, then they throw the ball out to the trips because now you've got 3 on 2, all right? So he's the stress defender in our defense, which is the same thing he was in college, but he was doing that from a deeper alignment. That's where he was in college versus bunch. Additionally, one thing to mention here, I put this on Twitter earlier today. Roquan Smith is identifying things pre-snap and communicating that to people. It's probably identifying that the guard's going to pull. This is when Taysom Hill runs over Marlon Humphrey. But the thing I like about it is Queen, Smith, and Geno Stone are there to clean it up and finish the dude off. Yeah, there's a possibility for them to call a penalty in this soft version of football that they've officiated now. But I love the identification pre-snap. That's one of the things that we've rarely seen from this Ravens defense, particularly prior to 2022. We did not communicate formations and tells under Wink's defense. Like it or not, that was reality. All right, there is Hamilton up at the top. To the trips. And like I said, he just looks smooth, and he looks like he's reacting smooth. That's Olave that he's covering out there on an out route. Additionally, Roquan Smith is letting this route pass inside of him to his leverage side, and then he's going to take over the underneath. We are way better in coverage now with Hamilton playing where he's playing and Roquan Smith being involved in the underneath coverage in the middle. I think this ball was going to be thrown over here to Olave. Could be wrong. So would have been interested to see if Hamilton was recovering all that. I think he was, but it got tipped at the line of scrimmage. All right, he is here. The 2-by-2 formation, so 2 receivers, and one of them's Taysom Hill. And then 2 receivers here. One of them's a tight end. It's a 2nd and 20. And this is one of the situations. Now, this is a great catch by Alvin Kamara. Almost a really high-level awareness play by Roquan Smith. And I'll digress for a second. Talk about Smith. Smith is here. Watch him as and Queen is faking the blitz. Queen's going to drop out, and then Smith is going to blitz. But watch what Smith does when he sees the running back cross his face and go through, I think, the A-gap. He's supposed to blitz, but he sees the running back releasing, so he's trying to chip him. He's trying to make contact with him on the way through. So he stopped his blitz. He stopped his rush. This is a supremely aware football player. Not just good awareness, in my opinion. I think he's incredibly aware. All right, let's talk about Hamilton, and to a lesser extent, talk about Marcus Peters. I don't think Peters plays his best in our read coverages. Now, the free safety, Stone, is reading the quarterback. So he sees the quarterback's eyes looking in this direction. So understand that before I say the next thing I'm going to say. I anticipate at some point people are going to try to hit us up the seam, because this is the second time I've seen this, where to Marcus Peters' side, we're getting an out or something to give him work, and he's taking it, and then we've got a guy running up the seam. Now, again, Geno Stone is reading the quarterback's eyes. So if the quarterback was to, let me pull this back a little bit. If the quarterback was to be looking here, Geno Stone will probably be drifting this direction, and this slot or seam go would be less open than it looks like it is now. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, let's finally get to Hamilton's part of this. I love that he turns his back. That is exactly what I taught curl flat defenders to do. Now, I would have liked him to be a little more physical with Hill, but he does redirect him and get his hands on him. And in my opinion, the out could be covered by Hamilton. It's probably going to be a completion if Dalton can get the throw all the way over here, obviously. Peters may be wrong here. He may be right. I don't know. I just don't think he is as instinctive in some of our read coverages as he is or he was in Wink's system, playing a lot of man and using film study, alignment, tendencies to kind of, I don't want to say guess routes, but to understand the tendencies that were there and then look for them and take advantage of them. To me, it seems like he's the guy who's having less trouble. Excuse me. He's the guy who's having more trouble in our read coverages where we have to read the release. We got another underneath route, and clearly the guy that's inside of Hamilton, is coming open here over the middle. So you can see the way the routes are distributed. Looks like 3 deep, 3 under to me. 3 deep, and then 3 under. That's what it looks like. So 5-man rush, 3 deep, 3 under. Let's see. So I would call this a zone blitz. Again, it's an example of us lining up one inside linebacker on the line of scrimmage and then dropping him and then bringing the other one. I think this is the one where Queen is going to pick the left guard and help Houston come free on the pass rush and go get a sack. So, yeah, zone blitz, 3 deep, 3 under. And I think it's possible that you got hot 2 here, hot 2, and then he should have all of 3, which he does. He takes 3. I think it's possible that Hamilton might need to be stuck a little closer to that receiver there. I could be wrong. I don't know what they're teaching, but the way that we taught it, zone blitz was simplistic because we knew the ball was going to have to get out quick, number one. Number two, we had two-way players, so we weren't able to teach things in too complicated a fashion early in the season. You could do that later on. All right, bunch set. Running back to the side of the bunch, Taysom Hill at quarterback. This has been QB sweep a lot prior to week 9. Generally, it was to this side. So the bunch was over here. The running back's feet were there. Taysom Hill was following the running back and the bunch on a pin-pull scheme. Watch Hamilton and Houston. They're looking for this play. So our preparation is more specific, way more specific now than it was under Wink. I mean, if you don't like me saying that, I don't know what to tell you. I'm just telling you my observations. I'm not an anti-Wink guy. We did not play tendencies. We just played football, which is, there's a time for that too. But this movement and this movement is to take away QB sweep. We did not do those type of specific things formationally until this year. And I still haven't seen them a ton this year. But it's not QB sweep. It's a fake. And then coming back to this guy, and Oweh and Peters play it really well. Got to give Peters credit for staying on the outside, letting his help to the inside make the tackle. That's making the play without making the tackle, for real, is what that is by Marcus Peters. Not sure what Chuck is reading. Could be reading here. Could be reading the lineman. You know, if you're a linebacker, you'd cross read it. The running back on the other side, but you know, it's full flow to that side. Everybody's flowing to that side. Chuck ends up going in that direction a little bit. Marcus Peters and Oweh, great play. Hamilton's just jumping it. He's trying to be the force player. He's trying to force Taysom Hill inside if he does keep the football. So an example of us playing tendencies, doing film study. Obviously, these guys do incredible film study. I just did not think that we were prepared enough defensively in previous years. All right, Hamilton lined up over a receiver. This is a 3rd and 2. And it's slant flat or curl flat down here to the bottom side of the screen. So they're reading Chuck, I would assume. That's your 2 routes. You're going to throw it to the tight end. Check out Hamilton's coverage up here. Again, that's Traquan Smith not being targeted as part of the read. Hamilton has been in good relationship, if you ask me, you know, coverage-wise, at least initially when he's been playing man on receivers lately. I haven't seen him look like he's struggling in coverage against anyone in terms of man. I haven't seen him look like he's just left, you know, on the snap. 2nd and 10, 5th possession. There he is lined up to the tight end side. And I love this. This is a great play. This is man. I believe this is man. Man here, man. I think you've got man. I think you got 2 man. Hamilton sees Kamara running and makes a great tackle. I think that's a great play. It still ends up being, don't get me wrong, still ends up being a pretty solid game. It's a draw play underneath, letting Bowser go upfield. I think that's a fantastic play. Fantastic pursuit by Hamilton. To me, he now looks like he's showing you the speed that we saw on film many times at Notre Dame. I'm not talking about the 40. I'm talking about when you watched his film in college, there was a burst. There was a decisiveness. To me, that is absolutely obvious. All right, additionally, another thing that's obvious now is, again, he's involved in checking the coverage. Whatever the signal is, he's making the call to this side of the field and this side of the field only. Now, I don't know if the other side guys are making the same hand signal. Doesn't look like it to me. So this could be a split field coverage where you've got one coverage on this side of the field and maybe a 4th guy helping out, and then another coverage on the bottom side of the field, and maybe our Sam dropping out. Not sure. I really don't know. I don't have the coverage labeled here. It's 1st down. It looks like man from Hamilton. Quick game to the top side. All right, so Marlon's getting some type of a little bit of a vertical, and then you got a slant. So they're just taking advantage of this space here. If you had this, something like that, quite sure Marlon would get involved in defending that, kind of like Hamilton is down here to the bottom side. It looks like man to the bottom side to me. But with the Ravens this year, and this is kind of what I'm talking about with Peters with our read, I think we're reading this. So I think he's reading, maybe 2 goes under, let him go. Maybe 2 vertical or 2 out, take him. And Peters is probably reading 2 as well, 2 out or 2 vertical. Then what that tells Peters is man on number 1. I'm just giving you examples. That's not the specific coverage that I think it is. Just speculating because I don't know what these hand signals are. I haven't watched so many of the coverage calls where I can pick that up yet. I mean, maybe I need to do that. Look at the hand signal and track it based on each play from the all-22. Hamilton down here lined up over the tight end. 5th drive again. This is, I believe, the Saints field goal at the end of the second quarter. Pretty good coverage if you ask me. I like how he's a little bit physical. Like he gets his hands on the tight end and he's willing to have his hands on past 5 yards. I like that. We'll get some penalties, I know. But we'll also set a tone with them that we're not going to back down from being physical. You got a great play by Roquan Smith on Alvin Kamara, obviously. Looks like another version of 2-man to me. Let me know what you think of Hamilton covering in man. I think against tight ends, that is it's been multiple people in our Discord and on other social media sites speculate that that's what they thought would be his best skill. Certainly seems like it so far, but I think he's really good in zone too. I think he's improved in zone, and I think he's understanding what they want him to play. Now, the only thing I will say is this. If you're being used as a nickel or a slot defender, or some people call it, there is the possibility that you are a tendency for the offense. Meaning, when you're on the field and you're in this particular alignment, it's either this coverage or that coverage. And that's why split field coverages are so important. That's why they kind of break the mold in some ways. Because what split field coverages do is, and we don't play them all the time. I would guess that we're playing them 15 to 20% of the time. I might be wrong. What they do is they allow us to, against the same look over the course of, 9 games, let's say the same formation, they allow us to play 2 or 3 or 4 different coverages to either side of the field, so we're less predictable coverage-wise. That's the point of a split field coverage, if you ask me. It puts a lot of responsibility on the defense. I am speculating a little bit here. I suspect that our coverage has gotten better as the season has gone on because we're more comfortable with those coverages. I cannot, to be honest with you, identify the hand signal yet. I cannot. I know the EA, Edgar Allen, is really big on split field coverages. Maybe I'll try to contact him and see if he has any idea of when we're calling certain split field coverages. And I think Kyle Hamilton has become really comfortable in his role, whether it's man, whether it's true cover 3, whether it's quarters out of our dime look, which we play somewhat in terms of our quarters out of dime, or if it's our split field coverage stuff, where he's reading 2 and him in the corner are both reading 2, and he may play man depending on the release, or he may zone off depending on the release. So let me know if you're seeing the same thing as I am. If you think I'm looking at this with rose-colored glasses, I think he's playing extremely well. The stats show it. All right, let's do it that way. The stats show an improved player the last 3 weeks, particularly the sack, 2 quarterback hits, 1 pass defensed, and then the interception that got called back, obviously. He had a forced fumble against New England that was a fantastic play. In the preseason, he had a fumble recovery that was kind of random. I think on the first play of the preseason against the Titans, I could be wrong. But I think there's a sharpness, there's a decisiveness to his game. And he feels more, it seems as if he feels more comfortable with the tackling angles he's being given. Does it mean that I think he can't play free safety? No, that's not what it means. It just means that right now he's probably right now he's the best guy playing that nickel safety in a lot of situations, generally to the tight end side, I think. Pepe and Brandon Stevens, play some slot corner as well. But there's been a lot of times, especially in our dime look lately. Brandon Stevens is going to outside corner, and Hamilton and Marlon are both becoming like slot defenders. And there's two safeties on the field, Clark and Smith, and Brandon Stevens is the outside corner on the right. Peters is the outside corner on the left. Really interesting group. If you ask me, for those obvious passing downs, kind of a havoc group that I'd like to see on the field a little bit more often together. Let me know what you think of my breakdown of Kyle Hamilton. Again, if you think I'm being too optimistic about his play, there are people out there, I'm sure, who think that he's a bust, or they think that he's not playing that well, or he's, what do they say, low ceiling, high floor, I guess. Sounds kind of like a backhanded compliment. I'm not into those. I think we've got a really good player here. I think we've got a guy that's going to be multiple. And against these 11 personnel teams, I think Kyle Hamilton's going to play a big role. And we're going to see, if we want to win in the playoffs, we got to beat the Bengals, the Bills, the Chiefs. They're 11 personnel teams. So to me, Kyle Hamilton will play a big role there. And I think he's got that in him. You guys let me know what you think of the breakdown, what you think of Kyle Hamilton's play so far as a rookie, and specifically in the last 3 weeks of the season as the Ravens have reached, the halfway point pretty much with a 6-3 record.